Hi, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About This. I am your host, Crystal Hicks. My guest today is Trina Kennedy. Trina is a author. She's a social worker that she's been for 33 years. She's also a speaker and she's a trainer. Welcome to the platform, Trina. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much, Crystal. I'm excited to be here and talk about some of my favorite topics with you today.
Yes, this is my favorite topic too. We could never have enough discussions about mental health and wellness. It's very important because we all deal with emotional issues, some
Mhm.
worse than others, some trauma, some PTSD. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, first of all, is can you share with us the importance of raising awareness about mental health in today's society?
Absolutely. There is no health without mental health. It's a part of who we are. Unfortunately, over the decades, mental health has gotten a bad rap. There's a lot of stigma and shame that surrounds mental health for a plethora of reasons. Stigma is the number one barrier to people accessing help. In Canada, where I'm from Alberta, Canada. Stigma is the number one barrier to people reaching out and accessing help. And in fact, less than 50% of people actually reach out for help when they're struggling. And so I think the more we talk about it, the more we understand it, the more we normalize it as part of our health, the easier it's going to be for us to support each other, as well as for people to reach out and get that help that they might need in order to return back to a state of well-being.
Yeah, because I guess people are, I believe like the main reason why most people are afraid to talk about it is because of shame. A lot of people are ashamed of some of the things that they been through from their childhood, maybe even up to their adulthood, you know, and a lot of times they don't realize that you know, uh, they're not the only ones that are dealing with, things. And a lot of people can relate to a lot of what they've been through, and I think that if we open up a lot more about mental health and awareness, it will help people, start to talk more about it rather than be ashamed to talk about it. Because I know from my own experience, I used to be ashamed to even talk about my own struggles, you know. So it's very important, I think, that, like you said, it's a stigma in society. And I'm glad that not only this platform, but that other platforms are opening up and making conversations about it. How does trauma impacts one's mental health and their overall well-being, in your opinion?
So, if we look at the definition of trauma, trauma is Latin for wound, and the definition of trauma is something deeply distressing or a disturbing experience, where it moves us into that fight, flight, or freeze response.
Mm-hmm.
And so, those sorts of events don't necessarily have to be traumatic, but what happens is when somebody experiences a distressing event and they experience, feeling unsafe or out of control or just fearful. If we don't have people to hold a safe space, if we don't have somebody who can validate for us that experience, validate our experience and our emotions associated to that event, that's when it becomes traumatic. If I experience a really distressing event say at work, let's say, I'm working with a client and something horrific happens and they die. And I was there when it happened. Like that's traumatizing potentially.
Right.
If I went home and, didn't talk about it because, I thought, oh, I just want to talk, I just want to forget about this, that's going to fester. It's going to
Mm.
fester like a sliver, right? But if I
Yeah.
go home and I tell my husband, who's my number one ally and support, hey, I got to talk about what happened. This is really distressing. And he listens and he validates and he holds a safe space for me to process,
Mm-hmm.
to name it to tame it. So, name the emotions that I was experiencing, feel it to heal it. So, where am I feeling it in my body? How is that impacting me? And then sharing it to bear it. When we can do those three things with people who who we trust and who make us feel safe,
Mm-hmm.
we can complete the distress loop. And that does not then have to be traumatic. I can then move through it
Mm-hmm.
because I've processed it. If we don't process those things that are really distressing, and all those emotions that are attached, it's like we carry a backpack and it's like a heavy rock that gets put in that backpack.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's rock after rock after rock because let's face it, Crystal, as a society, we suck at
Yeah,
feeling our emotions
we do.
because we're raised to, I don't know about you, and this is a lot about what my book that I is being released October 17th. It's called From Trauma to Triumph and What Lies Between. This
Mm-hmm.
is really my story as a child was, my parents loved me the best way they knew how, but they couldn't give me what they never received. And
Mm-hmm.
we didn't do emotions. We
Right.
didn't do emotions.
Yeah.
If I was crying, my dad would say, quit your crying or I'm going to give you something to cry about. So my emotions weren't validated. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel safe to express them. And so I armored up and I thought, my armor became, okay, I got to suck it up. I got to soldier on. I got to figure this out on my own. But that's not how it works.
Right.
And emotions aren't good or bad.
Yeah.
They are just part of the human experience. And unless we feel them and
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge them, then we can work through them. If
Mm-hmm.
we don't, it's a rock in our backpack. And so what happens as that backpack builds, that begins to impact our mental health,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where we start to become, where we might experience chronic anxiety or depression, or
Mm-hmm.
that trauma could also move into post-traumatic stress disorder.
Right.
We all have experienced some level of trauma in our life,
Right.
right? Trauma
Yeah.
is a shared human experience, and people
Right.
need to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, not everything has to be traumatic if we
Right.
have the people in our lives who can help us complete that distress loop.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing a lot of shift in the parenting field, which gives me a lot of hope, where there's a lot more connected and attuned parenting, where parents are holding that safe space for their children to process.
Right.
When we're regulated through the adults in our life as children, we learn how to regulate our own emotions. And everything comes back, our mental health, trauma, everything comes back to processing emotions in a safe way.
Yeah. And it's like we're breaking that curse too, because like you said, our parents and probably their parents didn't teach them how to deal with their emotions, so they only taught us what they were taught.
Exactly.
And then once it's same thing with me. I'm breaking a curse with my family,
Yep.
because I know growing up in my household as a kid, we didn't talk about things that were bothering us. I had to go through witnessing domestic violence between my mother and my father, and we never talked about it. I don't think me or my siblings even talked about it. We just dealt with it and just went on about our lives. And that shows an example of it shows it's the wrong example, I want to say, of showing how to love someone. So therefore you don't know how to really love a person like you're supposed to. And it can affect you later on in your life, even when it comes down to relationships. You don't know how to love a person who's trying to love you because you weren't taught it,
Yeah.
you know? And it's so important for us to really open up about this conversation. And I'm glad you touched on that because, you know, um, we don't talk about these things, and we need to make this a regular conversation on not just my platform but every platform. Everybody's who's the more people who talk about it, the more people will open up about it.
Yeah.
In your experience, what barriers exist that prevent individuals from seeking help for their mental health issues, especially related to uh trauma?
Again, shame,
uh
stigma is the number one barrier for sure. And I think you hit it at the core is shame, that somehow we think there's something wrong with us or that we're the only ones dealing with things.
mm-hmm.
And again, that's the messages we get from society that, in Western culture, it's, rugged individualism and, weakness is somehow vulnerable or vulnerability is somehow weakness. And in fact, I think being vulnerable is one of the most courageous things people can do. And asking for help is the most courageous thing we can do. The
Mm-hmm.
second barrier, I'm not sure about the state. relate so much, Crystal, because I'm from Canada, but we are in a mental health crisis
Yeah.
like we've never seen before.
Yeah,
And the
really.
resources are not adequate. They are not
Yeah.
adequate. A lot of people, I mean, if somebody had $175 out of pocket for counseling, there's options. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people aren't in that position, sadly. So our publicly funded or free or low cost is
Mm-hmm.
they're just bursting at the seams. And so I'm a mental health first aid instructor through the Mental Health Commission of Canada. And I think that the more people we can get trained in mental health first aid, the more we're going to be able to support each other because we can't rely on the systems. We
No,
have to rely on each other
that's
and the
true.
community
Mm-hmm.
and get back in touch with building those connections and those relationships. Because again, in Western culture, we do this. It's like, oh, you have a problem, you have substance use issues, or you have mental health issues, or you're experiencing homelessness. You go over there to the fringes of society and figure your shit out. And when you
Mm.
got it figured out, then you can come back into community. And we have that so backwards.
Yeah, we do. We
We
do.
need to be bringing everybody into community and saying everybody has a place here. You
Mm-hmm.
matter. Let's figure this out. You're not alone.
Right.
Because when we're in that deep, dark hole, with mental health issues or trauma or whatever led us to that hole, we feel so alone.
Yeah.
And so reaching in, and that's what mental health first aid teaches people is how to recognize when someone is having a mental health crisis, or their mental health is declining, and then how to have that conversation and the skills and the knowledge and the confidence to be able to reach into those dark holes and give that helping hand. Because if we wait for government to figure it out, by
Right.
God, we're in trouble.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Yeah. Yeah. We can't rely on the government
No.
to do anything for us these days. We need to rely, like you said, on each other as a culture, as a community, because we know the government is that's a whole nother story. It's that they're all about self, it's all about them. They don't, from what I see, it's not about the American people. It's not about the things that the American people need. Even the money, I don't think, is invested. Our tax money is invested in programs like mental health services and things of that nature, because if that was the case, we wouldn't have so much homelessness. I mean, you
Mhm.
go to all these cities around the country and you see so many homeless people laying on the street, which shouldn't happen because this country is a capitalism country. We get so much money. Why are so many homeless people living on the street, And it all, it's a domino effect, I mean, you have addiction, you have a homelessness, you have mental health issues. These things all are combined together. And if we don't deal with these issues, it's just going to get worse, you know?
100%. Yeah. And so we have to quit fighting each other, and
Yeah,
we have to come together and we have to support each other and we have to be there for each other. And in order to do that, we have to be well ourselves because
yeah,
you can't pour from an empty cup. So that
yeah.
self-care and that working on ourselves
Mm-hmm.
is so critical because when my cup is overflowing, that I'm a better wife, I'm a better mom, I'm a better friend. I can help other people without it compromising my own well-being.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other stigma, I think, especially as women, we're taught, or raised as little girls, that your job is to meet everybody else's needs as a wife, as a mother, as a social worker, as a friend, as, a daughter, as my parents get older.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's the wrong narrative. I first have to take care of myself,
That's
right?
true.
It's self-care isn't a luxury, it's essential in our overall well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to first take care of ourselves so we can take care of each other.
And we got to do it constantly,
Mhm.
because as a mental health advocate, I find myself constantly pouring in and trying to help as many people as I can. But then I have to realize that I have to make sure I pour into myself, like you said,
Right.
and that's a constant thing. It's not something that you start and then you stop. I got to constantly keep educating myself. I got to constantly keep taking care of myself mentally and physically. Even I'm going to the gym, working out, because I feel like working out is very essential when it comes down to your mind and clearing your mind in this, and just reading and learning more about mental health and becoming more aware so I can help share the information and be as strong as I can to provide as much knowledge as
Yeah.
possible to help someone else. Um, how do you think we can reduce the stigma surrounding mental health issues in our communities?
I think the number one way,
Mm-hmm.
Crystal, is to watch the language we use when we talk about mental health. A
Mm-hmm.
language is the number one perpetuate reason that stigma is perpetuated, and we do it not even we do it even unknowingly. So
Mm-hmm.
let's just take suicide for example. So first of all, let me backtrack.
Okay.
I think we would agree that our physical health is equal and as important as our mental well-being. Would you
Oh,
agree with that
oh,
statement, Crystal?
definitely. I
Yeah,
definitely. I always say that.
yeah. But our language, when we talk about things, don't say that. So, for example, when we hear the word committed suicide,
Mm-hmm.
committed is a very judgmental word. And in fact, committed came from when suicide actually was illegal. If somebody attempted suicide, they could be under the criminal code in Canada, be charged with an offense.
Mm.
That's where the word committed came. We get committed to the hospital. People commit crimes. It's a very judgment latent word.
Mm-hmm.
So if we want, and the root cause for the most part of suicide is mental health. So if we want physical health and mental health to be seen on the same level, we need to talk about it in the same way. Would we ever say someone committed a heart attack?
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't say that.
That's
Oh,
true.
I knew that burger Tom ate last week was going to be the nail in his coffin. We don't say
Right.
that,
Right.
right? We say they died by a heart attack. They died by
Right.
cancer. Well,
Right.
then our language for mental health should match that. They died by suicide,
Mm.
died by heart attack, died by suicide. Those are the things that will put mental health on the same playing field as physical health. And
Mm-hmm.
those are the things that will normalize um, instead of mental health, why can't we reframe it to brain health,
Mm-hmm.
right? My
Yeah.
brain health, my heart health, my body health, right?
Yeah.
Again,
Mm-hmm.
it puts it on the same playing field.
Right.
We use all the time, oh my God, that drives me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when we say those statements, those things perpetuate the stigma around mental health. When, someone's moody or they're having a bad day, oh my God, she's so bipolar, right? Like it minimizes it, it stigmatizes it. And those are the things, again, unknowingly
Mm-hmm.
perpetuate the shame and the stigma surrounding mental health. Our words have power. So
They do.
we need to be mindful of the ways and the words that we're using when we talk about mental health. Those are some of the things that can reduce the stigma.
Mm-hmm.
Creating safe spaces and normalizing the conversations, noticing when people are struggling and saying, hey, I noticed, you're not yourself. Is everything okay? I want to help if I can, right? Like planting those seeds. They may be like, no, mind your own business. Okay, I respect that. Clearly, you're not ready to talk about it, but I want you to know if that changes, I'm here. And I'm a safe person. I want to be here for you, right? Those kinds of messages. I think so often because we don't take care of ourselves, we see other people struggling. We're like, I just can't. And that's fair. If you're not in a place to help, I get that.
Right.
Because part of our own self-care is having boundaries as well and not continuing to pour when our cup is empty.
Mm-hmm.
However, take care of ourselves so we can take care of each other and notice when we're struggling and be the person to reach out. Because if we wait for people who are struggling to reach out to us,
They're not.
that's not the way it works because as
No,
soon as we struggle, we disconnect,
that's true.
right? And so
Mm-hmm.
we need to be the hand reaching in. We can't wait for their hand to reach out.
Right.
So we need
Right.
to change that narrative too, because a lot of it is like, oh, you're struggling, reach out for help. Yeah, that's great, but that's not realistic. That's not how it works.
Yeah. I hate when people say mental health issues is a weakness or that person is crazy or go deal with your it's like you pushing the person away, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I think that's one of the worst things that we could do to people in society is push people away. We have to give them an open space to open up instead of judging them or talking down to them. Why don't you, like you said, why don't you say, how are you doing? Or is there anything I could do to help you? This is things that we need to do more of. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that people are just not self aware themselves
Yeah.
on mental health. And they don't know how to unknowingly, like you said, unknowingly, they don't know how to approach someone who's going through some things emotionally, and I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have in society. We so quick to judge a person. Oh, they weak, or they, they're stupid, or go get yourself together, or, you just, it's
Yeah,
the same thing as suppressing your emotions, which is really, really something that really that makes me upset when I see things of that nature. How about you? I know I feel this.
yeah.
That's how I feel. I hate when people just push people off.
I agree. And I think a lot of that, Crystal, exactly like you said, just comes from a place of not knowing or
Mm-hmm.
thinking they're helpful when they're actually, maybe not being helpful. Um, the piece is to be empathetic and
Mm-hmm.
compassionate, and empathy and compassion go hand in hand. And I think lots of people think they're being empathetic when they're not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think lots of times people are being sympathetic, and I'm just gonna borrow the words of Brene Brown. Sympathy drives disconnection.
Mm-hmm.
Empathy builds connection. And it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to be empathetic. So if we think about someone being in a deep, dark hole, they're
Mm-hmm.
down there, they're scared, they're alone, they're overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
Empathy is crawling down in that hole with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it is sitting with them and it is saying, it's cold, it's dark, but you're not alone. I'm right here.
Mm-hmm.
Empathy is not, hey man, let's go up the hole, let's just go up the ladder. That's all you
Right.
need to do. Just get up the
Right.
ladder.
Right.
Well, guess what? First, they need to know you're there. Need to know you're not judging them. They need to know that you're validating and that feelings of being scared and alone and overwhelmed are really understandable given the fact they're in a deep, dark hole. Anybody
Mm-hmm.
who's in a deep, dark hole would feel those same things.
Mm-hmm.
And then we empower them. Compassion is not problem solving it for them. It is theirs to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
Our job when we're being empathetic, whether it's our kids or our spouses or our friends or a stranger, is not to protect people from experiencing, strong emotions or problem solving it out of it. Our job is to make sure they're not alone in it. That is
Mm-hmm.
the key to empathy. So many people jump in and want to problem solve it for people or tell them what they need to do, and that
Mm-hmm.
completely disempowers somebody. The message is then you can't figure it out. I got to figure it out for you. That's not helpful. That doesn't make people feel safe.
Right.
The number one key to trauma, to mental health, to anybody who's dysregulated is to first make them feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we do that is by making them feel seen, heard, understood, and empowered.
Mm-hmm.
Once someone feels seen, heard, understood, and empowered, then they feel safe. Once
Mm-hmm.
they feel safe, then they'll be able to kind of have connection with their thinking rational brain because they're not in fight, flight, or freeze,
Mm-hmm.
that amygdala survival part of their brain. And then they'll be able to move into, okay, what do I need? What
Mm-hmm.
would be helpful? And we support them in that. And maybe
Yeah.
they decide something completely different in terms of what would be helpful. And we're thinking, oh my God, that's not what you need to do. You need to do this. But guess what? It's not about you.
Right. That's right.
We need to set our egos aside. It
Yeah.
is their life. And our job is to support them through figuring out what that needs to look like, not
Yeah.
fixing it for them, not telling them what they need to do. That is not empathy. That is not helpful.
Right.
And even
That's.
if someone says, "Tell me what to do," I reframe that to go, you know what? It's understandable you don't know what you need right now. I'm here to help you figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a crisis responder for our national kids helpline. And so when, kids are texting in, lots of times they're like, just tell me what to do. And, I'm just like, our response as responders is, you know what? I'm here to support you and figuring out what you need to do. I'm here to support you in that. That's
Mm-hmm.
empowering,
Right.
right? That's
Yes.
empowering
Very
people. And we
empowering.
need to give people back the power. Our systems, our government, all these things are disempowering people, which creates that helplessness and victim mindset. And the way out of this is to empower each other and support each other through these really difficult times.
Yeah, and then sometimes all you need is a listening ear.
Mm,
Sometimes they don't need a feedback from you. They just
that's
need for
right.
you to listen to them, because a lot of times people don't get no one to listen to them, and once, like you said, creating that safe place is like, and one of the things of creating that safe space is listening and letting them be heard, and then, them empowering themselves, basically not even knowing it, just
Yeah.
by talking about what they're going through, and and just giving suggestions, maybe, but not just You don't want to cripple them by controlling the narrative or the situation.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think that the way around that, Crystal, is questions are incredibly powerful. Asking, what do you need to feel safe? What do you think would be helpful? Has there been a time in your life where you experienced these types of emotions? And if so, what helped then? What do you think that would help? Like that questions allow people to have what's called introspection. And
Mm-hmm.
introspection allows them to go inside and figure out the answers for them. Because what I think they should do, or even suggestions, are from my experience, my worldview, and
Mm-hmm.
my worldview and experience, Crystal. Me as a white, serious, living a white privileged life, I'm going to be honest, that's what my
Mm-hmm.
life looks like, is going to look very different from you, given,
Right.
you're not white, you're black, right? So
Right.
your experience is completely different. So for me to come in and say, oh, maybe this or that, that's
Right.
that's not respectful,
Right.
even though it comes from a good place.
Right.
So I think just reaching out, asking questions, and encouraging people, there's people who can help.
Right.
Do you think that would be helpful? Do you want to explore where you might be able to access that? Or are you just
Mm-hmm.
needing to be heard? Like, really, what do you need?
Right.
And sometimes they don't know. And sometimes it's
Yeah.
just listening, and sometimes it's just our presence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Rarely can words make something better. Again, this is Brene Brown's quote: rarely can words make something better. What makes something better is connection. And if we
Yeah.
think about times in our life where we were really distressed, and upset and lost, and the people who supported us through that, I don't remember what they said, but I
Right.
remember how they made me feel. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the key. That's the key to empathy.
Yeah, yeah, that is so true. I know during the pandemic and even now with the way things are going in the economy with, inflation and food prices being high, rent being high, and we're still dealing with the aftermath of the pandemic. A lot of people are emotionally distressed right now, and this is the time where we need to start being a lot more kinder to people because we don't know what a person is going through. Society is so quick to judge, but we don't know what's going on in a person's, in their mind. We don't know what's going on behind these computer screens, so we have to be careful as to how we treat people. I always treat people the way that they treat me. That's the way I was raised, and that's the way my kids were raised. And and even if someone wasn't so kind to me, I don't take it personal sometimes. I say to myself, I don't think it was me that they're angry at. It's something that they're angry at and they just took it out on me.
Yeah,
So sometimes what I'll do is I'll just pray for the person and say, I'll just pray and hope that whatever it is they're upset about, that they get through it, because we don't know what people are dealing with. You know what I mean?
totally. Everybody has a story,
Yeah.
and we all judge, but nobody likes being judged. So I catch myself, I judge. I mean, we all do it. It's part of being human.
Yeah,
So
it's a new,
for
natural.
Yeah, and so it's really is about that self-awareness. And if
Mm-hmm.
I'm standing in line at a grocery store and someone's being, acting really disrespectful to, say, the store clerk who's bringing their groceries through, I might catch myself thinking, oh, what a jerk. And then I have to stop and go, no, Trina, like, I step out of judgment and into curiosity. That's the mantra I actually tell myself. And so
Mm-hmm.
then I shift it to, I wonder why they're having a bad day. I wonder why they're treating, the clerk like that.
Mm-hmm.
And exactly that. So it's about getting curious. There's a great book that was released, I think it's about 2 years ago now, by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey, on
Mm-hmm.
trauma, called What Happened to You. And it's
Right.
all about being trauma informed and shifting that judgment of what's wrong with you to what happened to you. That
Mm-hmm.
that curiosity of what's the story behind the behavior.
Mm.
And there's always story behind behavior. I'm not saying it's appropriate, and I'm
Right.
not saying we have to tolerate inappropriate
Right.
behavior, but I'm just saying we have to understand the context, and that there's often a hurting, scared,
Mm-hmm.
overwhelmed, or lost person
Mm-hmm.
behind that behavior. And I think that allows us to get in touch more with our empathy and compassion when we come from that reframe of behavior as opposed to standing in judgment, because nothing good comes from judging others, because
No,
I don't like it.
no, it doesn't. Nothing good comes from it. That's why I try to stay away from it. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm perfect, and like you said, I've judged, but I try to stay away from judging. As the more I become self-aware,
Mm.
the more I understand why people behaviors or the way that they are. And the more I don't take it personal.
Yeah,
There's something like you said going on behind that behavior, because people don't just act out for no reason.
yeah,
It's something behind that action,
yeah.
behind ever and I just had a conversation with a lady named Vita Wood. She has a foundation called Protect Us Kids Foundation, and we were talking about that. There's a reaction behind every action. People don't just react for no reason.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. So if we think about it, Crystal, from a physiological perspective, what's happening is when people are, yelling or they're being disrespectful or they're being really aggressive, their nervous system is dysregulated. So
Mm-hmm.
something has happened, stressors in their life, because we all have them. You mentioned a whole bunch as, Americans and Canadians and people around the world are facing. What
Mm-hmm.
happens is that pushes us into hyperarousal, where adrenaline and cortisol starts to be released. We start to move into the survival part of our brain, the amygdala. And as soon as adrenaline and cortisol starts to be released, it increases heart rate, increases breathing, respiration, and we start to disconnect from the cortex of our brain, which is the thinking, rational, regulated part of our brain. So
Mm-hmm.
when I see that behavior, that to me, I just say to myself, oh, that person's dysregulated. Something's happened where they don't feel safe, because that's
Mm-hmm.
at the core of dysregulation,
Mm-hmm.
is not feeling safe. And stressors and life can make us not feel safe from a physiological perspective. So
Mm-hmm.
we're all human, right?
Yeah,
We all have a breaking point, and the more, and that I think that's we can't be self-aware when we're dysregulated.
that's
We
true.
can't be empathetic when we're dysregulated, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can't be rational. We can't problem solve. We don't, nobody is the best version of themselves when we're dysregulated.
That's true.
So again, I think when we think of it from a physiological perspective in terms of what's happening in their body, again, it allows us to not take those things personally. Now, if
Mm-hmm.
someone's calling me a bitch or something, I'm going to be like, hey, not okay. I'm
Right.
not saying that gives people a license to walk around and be,
And right.
hurtful or
Right.
disrespectful to people.
Mm-hmm.
However, it allows us to not take it personal and stay regulated ourselves, because if we can stay regulated in a
Yeah.
state of someone's dysregulation, thinking of our kids, I mean, kids get dysregulated all the time. I
Mm-hmm.
knew the calmer I was as a parent, the more I was able to regulate my kids. I have
Mm.
Taylor and Keaton, they're adults now, but whereas when I was dysregulated and they were dysregulated, good
Yeah.
Lord, and that's what we're seeing when you look around the
Yeah.
world, right?
Yeah.
Dysregulation typically will create dysregulation. So if
Mm-hmm.
we understand and we regulate ourselves, we deep breathe, we reframe their behavior, all of those strategies, we ground our bodies, I can stay regulated. These are things I use all the time as a social worker. Then
Mm-hmm.
I can help that person regulate and come back down to a more regulated, calm state. So
Mm.
it all comes back to our nervous system. Trauma is about a dysregulated nervous system. Mental health is about a dysregulated nervous system.
Yeah.
So I just think understanding the biology and physiology behind it's powerful. It normalizes it, that
Mm-hmm.
all humans experience it. There's nothing wrong if you're dysregulated. Let's figure out how we can get you back to a state of calm and
Yeah.
focus.
Yeah. Because you don't want to fight fire with fire.
Nope,
You
that just gets bigger.
it just gets bigger. Yeah, you can't put it out. And you're like, man, so somebody got to have a level head, to keep
Right.
things balanced,
That's right.
which is important, and you brought that up about your kids. I think about my kids too, when they were, well, they're adults now, but when they were kids, I could just look at them and give them that look, because I didn't want to do a whole bunch of yelling and screaming. I give them that look and they knew what that look meant, like, okay, she's looking at us like this. We better get up and go take a bath.
Yeah,
Or we don't know what to think. You know, so, yeah. So, you just gotta, you don't want to take yourself out of that character, if you don't have to. And,
that's right.
which is very important. So how can we, better educate the public, you think, about the signs and symptoms of mental health issues to promote early intervention and support?
So in mental health first aid, again, as I'm an instructor, so teaching people how to be mental health first aiders is recognizing when someone's off their baseline. So when I talk about baseline, that's really talking about somebody's optimal level of functioning. And this is where we're at our best. We're calm, we're alert, we're regulated, we're focused, we're self-aware. All of
Mm-hmm.
those things we talked about, like we all aim to be at our optimal level of functioning, but because of stress and life, we're going to fluctuate. That's
Right.
normal. So we
Right.
really want to watch when somebody has been off their baseline and it's
Mm-hmm.
beginning to impact their quality of life. It's beginning to impact relationships. It's beginning to impact their ability to engage fully like they usually do. You know, if
Mm-hmm.
someone's just having a bad day, theoretically, if we have good self-care, we should be bouncing back to our baseline fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's when someone's off that baseline for a longer period of time where we're seeing significant changes in behavior where
Mm-hmm.
we want to go, hey, something seems off. I need to check in. I need to be that hand that reaches into that corner or down
Mm-hmm.
into that hole and just say, hey, is everything okay? These are the things I'm noticing.
Mm-hmm.
And you haven't been yourself. And is there anything you wanted to talk about?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need to do. Like, we don't have to like, oh, is this anxiety or is it depression or regardless of what that person might be dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to see changes in their baseline behavior. And that's what we need to notice. And that's being more preventative because if we wait till it becomes a mental health crisis where
Mm-hmm.
now they're potentially experiencing an overdose or they're experiencing suicide and they're high risk or
Mm-hmm.
they're having a psychotic break or all of those things, that's a crisis. We want to avoid getting to that. And I think, again, if we all support each other and we all watch out and we all notice when people are having significant changes in baseline behavior and we check in and we reach out, those are the things that are going to start to shift things for us as a society in terms of mental health and getting
Yeah.
people to the appropriate professional help for
Yeah.
sure, because some
Yeah.
people need that for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially the police department. I don't know if you saw the latest video of a woman getting shot by a police officer. I mean, she calls the cop and, for help, and then he comes there to her house and kill her. So, mental training, psychological training, evaluations should be done often within the police department, because they deal with a lot of psychological issues, as well, and not justifying what he did, but it just all falls into mental health, you know.
100%.
First of all, why was this guy on the police department if he was, dismissed from the military? Or, like, it's so many red flags that was there. Why do we allow things to happen? And the fact that when they come on calls and they run into someone who's having a mental health issue, we should have, more, the police department should have a lot more. I think they should have a lot more training, when it comes to mental health, because that will prevent a lot of people being harmed unnecessarily or killed unnecessarily, due to behavior that they may be having,
100%. Well,
Yeah.
and we it's training for sure, it's knowledge. And the other piece of that is help for the helpers. Like they're
Yeah.
human too. And
Yeah.
again, if they're working in cultures that say, suck it up, this is your job, get a grip, that's those are rocks are getting put into their backpack, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have to have a safe place to process the stuff they're dealing with. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna admit, like I can't imagine being a police officer in today's times,
Right.
right? Or a first responder of any sort. That's why we see such high rates of PTSD within our first responders, is because that culture is not supportive of helping our helpers. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's multifaceted. I think it's, better screening to make sure people who are appropriate to be police officers are like, so I think it's multifaceted for sure, Crystal. But yeah,
Yeah.
we are in complex times, Matt, like
Yeah.
never before, no doubt about
Yeah,
it.
we are in complex times. I mean, and I think a lot of our tax money should be put into having more mental health programs, making it affordable for people to get counseling, going to therapy. Some people can't afford to pay for those sessions, especially right now. And I think we need to put more money into people's emotional health, rather than just, just pushing them away. And like you said, we can't depend on the government. We can't depend on the system. We need to depend on each other,
Yeah,
and we need to support each other. It's, whether we're black, white, it doesn't matter what your race is. We need to come together and, support one another. Because we're all in this together. It
that's
doesn't
right.
matter what race you are. We're all in this boat together. We all living in this country together. You know what I mean? And
100%.
yeah, so we need to really start being more kind to one another and supporting one another and stop dismissing each other.
Yeah.
So you have a book out too. Could you tell us a little bit about the book? Share that with the audience as well.
Sure. I'm so excited. My first
Yeah.
book is getting released October 17th. That'll be available on Amazon. And it's called From Trauma to Triumph and What Lies Between. So it's really a mix of my own personal story, my own journey with my childhood traumas, and then my healing journey, as well as my knowledge as a social worker about trauma. So I've kind of mixed it, personal story mixed with
Right.
what some trauma information and knowledge is. And I really wrote it as a way to hopefully inspire, encourage, or celebrate people who are on their own healing journey.
Right.
I also wanted to bring light to what we call little t traumas. So when we look at trauma, there's big T traumas and little t traumas. So big T traumas are those big trauma events that somebody could have or, came close to dying.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe somebody was brutally raped or, ongoing sexual assault or physical abuse, those things, or, leaving a war-torn country.
Right.
Those things are big T traumas.
Right.
But there's also little t traumas, and those are the things every human has experienced to some
Mm-hmm.
level. And those are the things that in and of themselves may not have been quite significant. But
Right.
if we didn't get that distress loop complete, it's like death by a thousand little cuts, those little t traumas. Like me being upset, me being emotionally distressed, and
Mm-hmm.
then my dad saying, quit your crying or I'm going to give you something to cry about. That was like a little cut. And so over the time, as I would experience those things where my distress loop wasn't getting completed, it was little cut after little cut after little cut, which
Mm.
eventually led me at 16 to trying to take my life through a suicide, quite a serious suicide attempt where I almost died. So then it was from there, what needed to happen in my healing journey. But I also talk about how my unhealed trauma was carried over into my parenting and into my relationship with my husband, and how that armor that protected me as a child from the
Mm-hmm.
trauma no longer served me as an adult. And it
Mm.
was until I healed and learned to lay that trauma down that I was able to deeply connect and work through, my husband and I were able to work through some issues. And I really wonder, with the rates of divorce in this country, how much is it because of people's unhealed trauma and people
Mm.
being triggered and responding from that place of those unhealed wounds, and
Mm.
then not being able to get past that. So I really hope my book, gives a lot of insight into those connections.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone says, "Oh, I've never had trauma," I don't believe that. We've all had some trauma. It doesn't mean that maybe their trauma is still unhealed, but
Right.
we all have experienced some level of trauma in our life.
Oh,
So
yeah.
really hoping to, yeah, just to inspire people, hope it's helpful in people's own healing journey. And again, just to bring awareness about the impact and significance of those little T traumas that we may experience.
Yeah. So where could we find where could the book be found? Where
Amazon.
could,
It'll
oh,
be available on
Amazon?
Amazon. Yeah, as of October 17th.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. People
Uh,
can also go to my website. There's a
okay.
place they can just leave their email, and then I can send them a link once that's available. And so my email address is trinaleekennedy.ca.
Okay. And do you have any, before we close out, do you have any social media handles where people might be able to
Sure.
reach out to you if they need to?
Yeah, absolutely. So my Instagram is Trina L Kennedy, Trinal, and then Kennedy, Kennedy. And Facebook
Okay.
is Trina Lee Kennedy.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Trina, for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your experience and the trauma and things that you went through and how you overcame it and how you healed. This information that you're sharing is something that will heal someone who's watching, as far as the platform is concerned. And like you said, so many people are dealing with some sort of unhealed trauma and they're probably not aware of it. And I just want to say for the people who are watching to learn how to educate yourself and become self-aware as much as possible. There's so many books out there that is written. I just got a new book called The Body Keeps the Score. Have you heard of that book?
A wonderful book. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Every a couple people that came on the platform, they mentioned that book to me, and I said, you know what, I gotta order that book because it deals with the nervous system. I
Yes.
guess I haven't dig deep into the book yet, but a lot of that, like you said, comes down to your nervous system too. Because of the past trauma and the things that we hold on to. We're always in a safe space, and once you heal from those things, and healing is self-awareness is a part of healing,
Hmm.
and that's something that people need to know. You have to be aware of your trauma and you need to speak out, talk about it. This is a safe space. I always say this platform is a safe space for people to come and talk about whatever it is that they've been through and how they overcame it, because it helps heal other people who are listening. So, any
Absolutely.
last minute things you want to share with the audience before we close out?
Just to take care of you, to do, to know you're worth it, you're important. And when you take care of you, you're going to be better able to take care of the people you love and community. And to reach out when you see somebody struggling, reach out, be that hand reaching into that dark hole. The only way we're going to get through this is through community. In fact, the number one indicator of people moving into recovery is the number of their support system. It isn't
Mm,
about do they have the best therapy or the best medications. Not saying that those things, aren't needed or important for people's healing, but
mm-hmm.
it is about our social connections. We can't get that from, the government. We can't get that from, professionals. I'm not saying professionals don't have a role. I'm a social worker. There's certainly a role, but
Right.
we have to have the natural supports. We need to build a web of support. We need
Yeah.
to have people who love us and care for us and are there to pick us up when we fall down, and we're there to pick them up when they fall down. That's what we need to get back to. We need
Yeah.
to quit being so divided as a world, as a country, as communities, and just know we have more in common than we have differences.
That's true.
And just to reconnect and know that we're all worth it and we all matter, and our healing is important. So I want to thank you, Crystal, for having me on. This is a really great platform
Thank
and a
you.
really important topic. So continue the great work, and we will continue to be change makers in this world.
Oh, yes, yes. Doesn't it feel good to be a
It
change
does.
maker? I
It
mean,
does.
purpose is so passionable, just being able to help people. To me, it means more than, not to say money is not good, but it's just so fulfilling
Mm.
for me to be able to help other people heal, through this platform. And for those who are watching, make sure you like and subscribe so I can continue to bring more people on a platform like Trina Kennedy. And make sure you guys stay tuned for the next episode of Let's Talk About This. Until then, we'll see you then. Bye, Trina. It's nice
See you. Thank
talking
you.
to you.
You too.